Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Florida Friendly Homeowner Webinar Series. If you would put, put the name of your favorite plant in the chat, and let's see what we get. Wow, hibiscus, beautyberry, crepe myrtle, gardenia, Simpson stopper, pink mealy grass, conti. Wow, everybody likes something different, it looks like. Sweet almond. Wow. Buddha belly. Weeping bottle brush. Tubicina. Sunshine mimosa. Frog fruit. Blue curls. Okay, well, let's see. It looks like it's slowing down. So let's start our webinar here. My name is Jen Marvin. I am the Florida Friendly for Home Landscapes statewide coordinator in the Florida Friendly program. We do this webinar every third Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. If you want to see the schedule, it will be on your Glad You Came webinar announcement after this webinar is complete. Also, you can go to our webpage, floridafriendlylandscaping.com. We have muted your microphones. If you have questions, we're going to take them in the question box from now on. So please type them in the question box and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. Please stick around until the end and take the survey that has popped up in your browser. It helps me give you the kind of programming you like and tells us how we're doing. In November, we are going to have an Ask the Expert panel. If in the comment or in the survey in the comments, you can put a couple of questions. I will do some research to see who's most likely to answer them, so I can set up that November panel. So let's see, our presenter today is Brooke Moffis. And Brooke, I'm going to let you go ahead and give some information about yourself and go ahead and start when you're ready.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be with you all today. It's always an honor and a privilege to speak to you all through the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program. So my name is Brooke Moffis, and I'm the Commercial Horticulture and Florida Friendly Landscaping Agent in Lake County, Florida. And I'm going to be talking to you today about eco lawns and ground covers. I'm first going to start off about a research project that we did here in Lake County and give you the latest research results that I've been able to chug away at this past spring. And then we're going to get into some ground covers that I think have potential to act as really nice lawns in Central Florida. But let me start with the situation. And we'll get into, again, the multi-species lawn research project, and then we'll get into potential mixes and ground cover species. So I think you all are very well aware that and you've heard the figure before, that we have about 900 to 1,100 residents that move to Florida every single day. The last hard number I saw, or I shouldn't say hard number, but it was from the Florida Department of Financial Services, and it was about 900 residents move to Florida every day. So with that comes these rapidly changing land use. We have agricultural lands, we have natural areas that are being converted over to residential living because of that population growth. And with this comes homogeneous and maintained landscapes. So what are some of the issues with these landscapes? We have increased water demands from that landscape irrigation. There are some studies here in Central Florida that show that about 60% of our water use, at least on the Lake Wells Ridge, which is very excessively drained sands, can be about 60% of that water use for our homes can be for landscape irrigation. So you'll often hear the figure about 50%, but of course it all depends. So we've got, this increased demand on our water resources for more and more residents moving in, trying to create these lush, beautiful landscapes. By 2040, the Central Florida Water Initiative, which is comprised of multiple counties throughout Central Florida area, Osceola, Lake, Orange counties, to name a few of those, says that we are not going to be able to pull any more additional groundwater than what will be allotted for. So we've got to come up with other water resources because we'll be maxed out at about 850 million gallons of water a day that we can use. So we've got to come up with, again, other resources. We need to do some conservation efforts, and we can all do some conservation efforts in our own home. And then the other thing that I'm really interested, just because I love all creatures, great and small for the most part, except for maybe the mosquito and the fire ant. Okay, so maybe not all creatures, great and small, but I really enjoy wildlife. And so one thing that I'm really concerned about is with this rapid development, we get habitat loss. And so I have a picture from a community here in Central Florida. The pickleball courts probably give it away. But this is an example to show you that this could be anywhere in the state of Florida, right? It's not that different from other areas. We see that we have zoysia grass, and we have, it looks like juniper in that picture. We have sable palms, we have some date palms, we have oak trees. And this is, of course, a commercial landscape, and there's just not a lot of variety going on there. And so that we can support and attract our wildlife, we need a lot of plant diversity. And let's talk about biodiversity just in general. The Southeast is actually considered to be a global hotspot, but it's also an area in which we are getting massive development, of land. Now, we need to figure out how to utilize these urban landscapes so that we can grow plants that are going to help attract pollinators and help provide tree cover and habitat for birds. You have to have insects in your landscape so that you can have birds and other wildlife. Insects are one of those, you could say, kind of the base of the food web. Well, actually, plants are the base of the food web because they capture energy from the sun, and then other things feed off of those plants, and energy gets transferred through the food web. So we have to have insects so that we can have higher levels of life. So like birds, for example. And one example is our pollinator decline. This is the rusty patched bumblebee, and it historically occurred in the eastern and midwestern United States and even into southern Canada. And it was an important pollinator for all different types of fruit and vegetable plants. And it's a native pollinator. But since about 2007, we've had a decline, and the range for this insect has been greatly decreased in the United States and in Canada. So some of the reasons for that is disease and pathogens that are actually brought in for commercialized bumblebees, or I'm not commercialized honeybees when we do honey production, and when we use honeybees for pollination. So some of that can come in through that. Some of it is from things like habitat loss. So and pesticide use as well. So there's a lot of different things that can contribute to our pollinator declines. But we need pollinators, right? If not, we would have a very, very bland diet of wind-pollinated food. So we need these insect pollinators so that we can have a good diversity in our diet. And again, they're going to help with those plant life forms too, as far as spreading the genes and helping these plants prolong for, millennia. All right, so let's get into our multi-species research project. We thought that, with this occurring land use cover change and all these residential landscapes that are being developed, what is one area where we could focus? And we thought of turfgrass because of the prominence in the United States. There's about, this is a older figure, but in the early 2000s, there's about 40 million acres of turfgrass in the United States. About 1.9% of the entire land cover of the United States was turfgrass back in 2005. And I thought this map and these pictures were pretty interesting because one of the pictures I pulled from Seattle, another picture I pulled from Southern California, another one from Texas, and another one from the Michigan area. And then we have Florida as well. So we're growing these turf grasses throughout the entire United States, sometimes in arid conditions, sometimes in a mountainous arid condition, sometimes it's in a subtropical situation. So just to show you the widespread use. And why do we like turf grass, right? Or why do we use it in abundance? It's great for erosion control. It can help filter nutrients and pesticides. It can even serve as fire breaks, which is really important in areas that are prone to wildfires. And the recreation, of course, that's why so many of us have turf grass. So I thought, some of the studies that you'll see out there, they have eliminated turf grass and they have put in like wildflower meadows, which is completely different. And so, my brain kind of went to, and our research team's brain went to, could we combine turf grass with the wildflower? That way we're not eliminating some of the benefits of turf grass, but we're bringing in some of the benefits of native plants and wildflowers. So this is an area that I think is really interesting, and it's one of the only studies that I have found where we're actually incorporating turf grass in with wildflowers to see how it performs and how it attracts pollinators and other insects. So the study objectives was we wanted to look if we could increase the diversity of plants and lawn, and we chose Bahia grass. We wanted to see how resilient it was, and we measured resiliency by green cover. We also wanted to see with other forms of biodiversity. So if we're increasing the diversity of plants, how does that increase or decrease the diversity of insects? And then we needed to look at homeowner perception. This is very, very different than what we're typically used to. So if homeowners do not like it, it may never even take off the ground. So, and then we wanted to see the feasibility. How do we maintain these things? So what we did is we came up with 3 different treatment levels. We have treatment 1, which was Bahia grass only. Treatment 2, which was Bahia grass and 4 forbs. And when I use the term forbs, it's like the ecological term for wildflowers. So anytime I say forbs, think wildflowers. So we took Bahia grass and put 4 forbs into it. And then for treatment 3, it was all wildflowers. So it was 4 forb crops. And these are the ones that we used. We used Mimosa strigolosa, which is the pink poof ball that you see there. We used lyre-leaf sage, which is the one that kind of has the dark purple leaves and a rosette. We used Phylla nodiflora, which is frog fruit. That's the one that's low to the ground. And then we used Coreopsis leavenworthii, and that was Leavenworth's tickseed. That's the yellow flower that you see there. And again, we chose Bahia grass because it's a very, very drought tolerant. And it also is sparsely, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't form a really dense mat like St. Augustine grass or zoysia grass. So we thought we might get more reseeding of wildflowers in it. And then this is what we did. We only irrigated to establish. And throughout 2 years after we established these plots, we only irrigated 4 times in 2 years. And that's after we got them established. Weeding time, the weeding time was tremendous with these, so we'll get into that in a little bit. We did not fertilize the plots at all, and we did not use any pesticides or herbicides. For the mowing, we actually differed the schedule. So Bahia grass plots, we mowed once a week. The blended plots with the wildflowers and the Bahia grass, we mowed once every 2 weeks, and the wildflowers, we only mowed as needed. This is what our plots look like from an aerial view. So you can see we had 18 plots total, and we replicated 3 of those plots 6 times. So again, we wanted to look at public perception. What are people going to think? We wanted to look at percent green coverage. We wanted to check out the pollinator visits, arthropod abundance, and then we wanted to just look at the management of a blended system. Oh, the picture that you see at the top is the Bahia grass only. The picture you see at the bottom is the wildflowers only. So what we did is we involved master gardeners as citizen scientists, and we measured the pollinator visits that we encountered. So we looked at each plot for 5 minutes, and then we categorized them into whether or not they were a butterfly, honeybee, carpenter bee, bumblebees, other bees, wasp, and flies. So what we did is we counted the number of times that the pollinators landed on a flower. So a pollinator could land on a flower, it could lift off of the flower and land back down, and that would count as 2 visits. And we only counted if they landed on an open flower. And then this is where we have our master gardener. This is Ashley, and Ashley is out in the plot again, checking it for 5 minutes in each plot. All right, so these are our results, and this is it actually divided up in the different groups of honeybees, carpenter bees, butterflies and moths, wasps, bumblebees, other bees, and flies. So again, those were the groups we're looking at. On the bottom, you can see the collection date, the month and the year, and on the y-axis, you can see the number of visits that we had. And so it's kind of what you would expect to an extent. The Bahia grass that's in the far left, we had the least amount of visits. And then the Bahia grass mixed with the Forbs, the blended plots, had about half of the number of the Forbs. And the Forbs, the wildflowers, only had the highest numbers of visitations. But I think what was interesting, what we really wanted to look at was if we increase diversity mixed in with Bahia grass, would the insects be able to locate the wildflowers? Would we still get visitation? And we saw that yes, we did. So now we also did sticky cards and pitfall traps. This is actually Master Gardener John Braun, and he is out there doing the sticky cards, putting those up. We left them out for a week, and then we put pitfall traps in the ground. So the sticky cards were to catch the flying insects. The pitfall traps were to catch those insects that crawl across the ground. So we wanted to see if these, adding the plant diversity in the blended system, how it would affect detritivores, which are those insects that break down old plant material, herbivores, which are those insects that feed on plant material, and then natural enemies. So I'll show you our results. And we're going to go one graph at a time here. So let's look at the graph on the top left. This is herbivore abundance. And so this is the number of urban herbivores that we caught in a plot. This is actually the average that we caught. So you can see the trend, similar to what we're seeing with the pollinators. Bahia grass had the least amount of visits. As we add those forbs, those wildflowers in, we're starting to get increased number of herbivores that we captured in the pitfall traps. The other thing we looked at is the diversity of the herbivores. So again, these are the plant feeders. We wanted to look at the family richness. So family richness means the number of different families that we caught in the different pitfall traps. And we did see a more pronounced difference here. You can see the Bahia grass had the least, followed by the blended system, and then with the forbs. And so we did see a difference there with the herbivores. As we increased forbs, we saw in the plots we had an increase of herbivore abundance. Now with natural enemy abundance, again, we're using the pitfall traps. And what we saw here was we saw a difference in, let's see, in February time period, we saw a difference in November as well, and we saw a difference again in September. And the forbs, you have the month on the x-axis down below, and then you have the natural enemy abundance, the number of natural enemy insects that we captured in those pitfall traps. So the blue was the forbs, the blend was the the wildflowers mixed with Bahia grass, and then the orange was the blend mixed with Bahia grass, and then the gray was the Bahia grass alone. So you can see the Bahia grass had the least, followed by the blend, but we have, something going on here in June, and there was not really a statistical difference between the treatments here in June. And then August, you may have already picked up on that. We had very little natural enemies that we captured in August. And we think that possibly those pitfall traps had been flooded and, because they're just a little tube that we're sticking to the ground. So they're flooded and maybe those insects kind of floated out. So we had low numbers in all the traps in August. So the other thing that I need to point out to you all is we saw no difference with our natural enemy diversity. So we didn't really see any difference with the number of different families that we captured in those pitfall traps. And then we saw no difference at all, or well, I shouldn't say at all. We saw no statistical difference with our detritivores. And those are, again, our insects that eat decaying matter. So they're at the ground level. We did not see a big difference with them. All right, so when we talk about how resilient and the green coverage of these plots, this is what we saw. What you'll see is Bahia grass, forb, and forb Bahia mix. So you'll see examples of those in the summer and in the winter months. And what we found is that plots with wildflowers had about 5 to 20% higher green coverage during the summer than the turf grass plots, the Bahia grass plots. But we had 30% higher green coverage in Bahia grass plots during the winter. And then when we looked at these things throughout the study, the cover was the highest, the green cover was the highest in the mixed plots at the end of the study. So, and then what we found is that the forbs and the grass contribute to green cover at different times of the year. So your better green coverage is going to be, again, with the Bahia grass in the winter, but you're going to have a higher green coverage with your forb and Bahia mix during the summer. So you can see examples there of the pictures of what these plots looked like during summer and winter. So then we looked at public perception, and we had 70 extension participants that we surveyed. We surveyed them in March of 2020, November of 2020, and then October of 2021. And the groups that we surveyed were Florida Nursery Grower and Landscape Association members, specifically of the Action Chapter. And then we had Master Gardener Volunteer Plant Sale attendees. But they could not know anything about the project. That goes actually for all of the people that we surveyed and that we used for the public perception. They could have no knowledge of the project whatsoever. And then we had pesticide license holders that were attending one of our classes that we surveyed as well. There were some Lake County Master Gardener volunteers too that took the survey, but again, they had no prior knowledge of the project before they took the survey. So to the majority of those that took the survey, attracting pollinators, reducing pesticides, conserving water, reducing fertilizer, using native plants were all points of high importance to them. And then here's what we found. So let's focus on the first graph initially. This is the proportion of total responses. You can see the forbs on the x-axis, the blend, and the Bahia grass. And then if you look on the y-axis, you can see 0 down here, 0.25, 0.50, 0.75, 1.0. So you can think about these as percentages. So the 0.25 is 25%, of course, 0.50, 50%, 0.75, 75%, and then 1 would be 100%. So, and then I color-coded these so that we could look at the adoption. The light purple color, this light orchid color, was very likely to adopt. And then we have like this medium purple color. That means they were likely to adopt the treatment. This kind of beigey tan color is neutral. This mustard, dark mustard, they were unlikely to adopt the treatment. And then this light yellow colors, they were very unlikely to adopt the treatment. So you can see a trend. So again, let's focus on the top graph here. You can see that forbs, only about 13% were somewhat likely to use the forbs treatment. And then with the Bahia grass mix, about 38% were likely or very likely to use the forbs treatment. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. So when we look at the blend, we had about 38% of the participants said that they would be likely to very likely to use the blended treatment in their front yard. And then the Bahia grass, about 65% said that they were likely to very likely to use the Bahia grass treatment in their yard. So you can see this one, it's kind of the opposite, right, of what we're seeing with the pollinators and with the other insects, is that as our Bahia grass increases in the plot, people were more acceptable of using that treatment in their front yard. I thought this was interesting below too. This is the same type of information that we're conveying here, but we divided it up against our groups of people in the dates. The Florida Nursery Growers and Landscape Association in March of 2020, the Master Gardener Plant Sale in November of 2020, and then pesticide license holders in October of 2021. So, you could be quick to say that it looked like the Florida Nursery Growers and Landscape Association were the least likely to adopt the Forbs and the blended plots compared to the other groups. But we really can't say that because they were surveyed in March of 2020. And the plots look very different in March of 2020 than say they did in November and October, during the fall months. So, but the main message here is that, again, as more and more grass was incorporated into the plots, the more acceptability that we had for people using it in the front yard. So I wanted to show you some of the challenges that we had. Again, we're trying to, increase plant diversity to hopefully increase insect diversity to attract that wildlife. And here it is in January, February time period when we were doing data collection. That's actually Master Gardener Carol Hoffman. I don't know if she's on today, but I wanted to give her a shout out because she helped out with this project. But you can see what they look, what these blended plots look like in February. They don't, you can see that they have reduced coverage versus the turf grass plot right behind it. So I think this winter dormancy is something that we need to overcome. There could be some other wildflowers that we could mix in that could maybe take over in the winter. We've had suggestions of white clover, and I believe buckwheat even. Some people have suggested that we could use possibly in the winter time in these plots to still get that green coverage. So the summary results: plots with the wildflowers demonstrated increased pollinator diversity and increased pollinator visits. We had higher abundance of ground-dwelling herbivores in plots with forbs and with natural enemy abundance. But we didn't see other effects with the detritivores. And then with our cover, plots with forbs had higher coverage in the spring and summer. Turf grass provided more coverage in the winter. So these are some of the lessons learned. Again, winter dormancy, like we had just mentioned, we've really got to do something to maybe increase the aesthetics. Again, possibly incorporating other plant materials. I would say that we irrigated only for survival. We only irrigated 4 times in 2 years, which is a huge water savings compared to the way most people irrigate their lawns. But also we used Bahia grass, and Bahia grass typically is very drought tolerant and it's often not irrigated. So we did 4 times a year, 4 times every 2 years for survival of the plots. We could increase the irrigation a little bit at key points to kind of help keep the aesthetics up at a higher level, and still greatly reduce what someone would use in their home landscape. So we also need to look at better weed suppression. When we first installed these things, we did not use any pre-emergent herbicide or really any other treatment other than just preparing the plots. And so weeds were a big problem. The way we did this, where we actually put down pieces of sod and we planted the wildflowers next to it, and again, without any kind of ground treatment and just the bare soil, lots of weeds popped up. And this would never be feasible to do in somebody's home landscape, at least like this. So we could look at maybe pre-emergent herbicides. Maybe we could put those down to form like a barrier after we plant. And a lot of pre-emergent herbicides last between 6 to 12 weeks. And so they would, maybe help get these plots established, or these types of lawns established. And by the time that these pre-emergent herbicides wear off, it would be time for those wildflowers to reseed and germinate. So that's a study I would like to do at some point. We could also plant in greater plant densities, maybe even some type of wildflower sod product. I also wanted to show you this picture too. This is when we were really, really droughty in June of 2021. And this is something that I would love to look at and see if it relates. But we have, the Bahia grass by itself. Again, we were very droughty. So you can see all these patches in the Bahia grass. The forbs only, we also see these patches. But the blended plots with the Bahia grass and forbs had this really nice green coverage throughout the entire drought. So is there something going on at the root level where you have these really fibrous roots from the turf grasses, you have these other woody roots from some of the forbs, and they're all kind of working together, if you will, to help trap more soil moisture? So I would love to kind of compare that. I wish we would have done it, but that's science. You do something and then you go, oh, I wish we would have done it this way, or I wish we would have looked at this. So I think that could be another cool study too, to look at the soil moisture levels with these different treatments and the root mass, and try to figure out what kind of roots are in which areas, and how they're contributing possibly to soil moisture retention. Here's another picture too. I wanted to show you what the wildflowers only plots looked like in February. So, you can see the patchiness. You can see some of the wildflowers are kind of in a dormant state. Some are starting to pop up though too. So just so that you have an idea of what these wildflower only plots looked like during kind of the season of dormancy. So, but, we did have some impacts from this already. We had Cherry Lake Tree Farm, which is a very large tree nursery in Lake County, and Green Isle Gardens came out and they checked out our plots. And I think it really helped encourage them to do more wildflowers and more ground covers and lawns. I mean, they were already, I think, thinking this way, but maybe we helped them think about it a little bit differently. So Green Isle Gardens, I know, has been experimenting with creating a wildflower sod, because I remember talking to the owners of both nurseries and just saying that, the weed pressure was enormous. So this sod could be one way to get away from the intense pressure of the weeds. So we want to select more low growing and flowering plants. We need to determine the best management practices if we're going to, try to do these things. Again, do we use the pre-emergent? How often do we mow these things? So anyhow, but there has been some commercial interest. So I'm going to now get into the different types of blends and ground covers that I think have potential or that are already used here in Central Florida. But I'd like to thank the Master Gardener volunteers, graduate students, and Lake Gem Sod Farm for donating to the experiment. We had funding from the Center for Land Use Efficiency, and then we also had different contributors, so different professors. This is one of the reasons I wanted to work on the project, is we had an ecologist, we had an entomologist, we had a horticulturalist, a turf grass specialist. For those that are master gardeners, you recognize Wendy Wilbur, who's our state coordinator in this picture, graduate students and technicians. And so there was a lot of people involved because it was just a cool project. All right, so here's some other blends that we could do or ground covers. But first, I want to talk to you all about a tale of two lawns. And this is my own personal lawn, but we'll get into that. What do we look for in lawns? We want this uniform green coverage, right? We want to be able to use it for recreation. I want my kids to be able to kick the soccer ball around or run through the backyard barefoot. We want erosion control. That's super important. They need to be able to filter nutrients, some type of waste products to keep those from getting into our water bodies. We want it to be mowable. That way we can kind of maintain it short and neat. We want it to be tolerant of foot traffic, and it really needs to survive on low inputs. We want low water usage, low fertilizer, low pesticides. When I even just explaining this to you all right now, kind of going over these points, I'm like, we're asking a lot from a plant, a whole lot. So, and then also, like I said, I wanted to go over the tale of two lawns. In my backyard, I'll set the stage for you all. So much of this is about planting the right plant in the right place. My backyard butts up to a retention pond. It's actually really nice, thankfully, because it's very naturalized, so it looks like a lake. So it's a nice feature for us. So I think there's, some soil moisture that's coming in from this retention pond. We have large lifted oak trees in the backyard that provide filtered shade and filtered sun. I think my St. Augustine grass is one of the older ones from the 70s that could tolerate some shade, like maybe bitter blue. And so it thrives. It looks beautiful. I do not fertilize it at all, except for just mowing my oak leaves into it in the spring. I guess that could be a fertilizer. It's an organic matter, right? And then we don't irrigate it, and we don't apply pesticides. And when I say that, we did apply pesticides once about 10 years ago for chinch bugs. That's about it. So, and it looks beautiful most of the year, and I don't have to worry about it. So right plant, right place. We need to think about that with our turf grass and with these ground covers. But my front yard is a totally different story. It is excessively drained sand. It is exposed to full sun all day long. I don't have an irrigation system, so I was really scratching my head as to what to do. And what I decided to do was try a plant called Sunshine Mimosa. And since then, we've actually interspersed Bahia grass with it. So I have the whole multi-species or these blended systems with Bahia grass and wildflowers going on in my personal lawn, at least in the front lawn here. So I'll talk to you about some of the advantages and disadvantages, but I don't think I could have non-irrigated turf grass in my front lawn unless it was really drought tolerant like the Bahia grass, just because of my conditions. So let's talk about some of these ground covers. So this one is twin flower Dichoristi oblongifolia. This one has a nice thick coverage. It can take sandy, well-drained soils. Full sun is best to partial sun. It will take dry to moist soils, but it's also drought tolerant once it's established. It can be propagated by seed, cutting, or division. Is it mowable? It is a small kind of woody type plant. I don't know that it is mowable from our experience that we've had at Discovery Gardens, but there's a lot more research that needs to go into some of these ground covers. But I'm very happy with it. It's slowly spreads by these underground rhizomes. It's not aggressive. Again, it can self-sow from seed, and it's tolerant of a lot of our Florida conditions. But I also want to show you all, this was just a quick Google Scholar search that I did looking at the research on Dichoristi oblongifolia, or this twin flower. And what I pulled up was plant response following soil disturbance in a longleaf pine ecosystem. Vegetation of the Everglades, determinants of community composition. Ground cover recovery patterns and life history traits, implications for restoration obstacles and opportunities in a species-rich savanna. So, I guess I'm showing you this to tell you that there's not hardly any research at all right now looking at this plant as a ground cover. So we don't know how this is going to perform. I can tell you through our experience at Discovery Gardens what we have observed, but it's not like that there's a bunch of research going into some of these ground covers. There's more and more. I think this is a really hot topic where we're going to see a lot of research in the horticulture industry, maybe even ecological research kind of explode in this area with urban ecology. So there's a lot we still don't know. That's my preface there. And so there's also swamp twin flower. This is Dichoristi humistrata. This is a different species, same genus. This one is going to be full to part sun. It prefers a moderately moist soil. It can be a short-lived perennial, at least from what I'm finding, but I'm not sure how that's going to perform in Florida. It looks great in some of the landscapes where I see it planted now, but that's been maybe 2 years. It is a larval plant for the common buckeye, and you can propagate this one by division in seeds as well. And this is a large nursery here in Central Florida, and you can see all that swamp twin flower production that they're doing. I think for homeowners' yards, since it likes a moderately moist soil, and if we're trying to back off on irrigation, maybe an appropriate place would be in between the swells, or in between the two houses where you often have a swell that will hold some water, or any area where maybe the soil's not as excessively drained as other areas in the landscape. And then, of course, talking about ground covers, I have to talk about frog fruit, Phylla nodiflora, moist to moderately dry soil, full sun to part shade. Again, this one you can propagate by division and cuttings, and it is the adult in the larval butterfly plant for the Phaon crescent, the common buckeye, and the white peacock butterfly. So it gets, 3 to 6 inches tall, although we have some in Discovery Gardens right now that's probably closer to 8 inches tall. It spreads by those stolons, and it is a Florida native too. It can get a fungus though, which I think we really need to research more. So if someone's going to replace their lawn, or maybe not even replace their lawn, but just grow this in a large section in their landscape, there is a fungus that it can get in the summertime. And I've seen it really do a number and wipe out frog fruit, but we don't even know what the fungus is. We don't know how to control it yet. So again, there's a lot of research that's needed in this area. This is a home in the villages. And so if the villages can do these, eco-friendly landscapes where they have lots of native plants and other plants that attract pollinators and wildlife, I think a lot of developments can too. So I'll tell you some of the success that they've had. And before I get onto that, the wildflower that you see in the foreground close to the street, that is the frog fruit. But they are irrigating this frog fruit similar to what the turf is being irrigated. So I do want to mention that to you all. And you can see a lot of the rest of their landscape as native plant material and designed to attract birds and pollinators. Now, one of the things that they had to do to get this through the Architectural Review Committee of the HOA of the villages was they had to the Architectural Review Committee stipulated that it had to be no more than 8 inches tall, the ground cover, and it had to be planted by the street so that you had a consistent green coverage when you look down the street. And that makes sense, easy enough to do. So, those are some ways that we can work with these HOAs and homeowners associations to ensure like an aesthetic look to these neighborhoods when we're doing things different in our landscapes. Another one is sunshine mimosa, Mimosa strigilosa. I just like to say that scientific name. It's kind of fun. It's like a tongue twister. This one can take full sun to part shade. Is it mobile? Yes. It's not necessary as long as you don't have any weeds or other types of plants that get tall. But we mow ours, it's mixed in with bahia grass, and we mow the bahia grass, so then our mimosa gets mowed. It does provide a seasonal coverage. It can provide some coverage throughout the year, but if we get frost or freezes, you will notice that this will get hit back hard, but it usually flushes back. It looks fabulous during the dry season. So right now, when we're really droughty throughout Florida, this is when sunshine mimosa looks really, really nice. So it performs great when droughty. It can outcompete a lot of other plants when we're droughty. But during the summertime, when those rains return and we get our normal summer rains or typical summer rains, it can get weedy. So weed management can be an issue. It is also very aggressive. So I planted it in my yard years ago. My neighbors now have it in their side yard, and I was super worried about it. And I talked to my neighbor, and he said, "Hey, as long as it's green, I'm gonna mow it." So I said, "Oh, fabulous." So I feel relieved about that one. Another word of caution, again, there is no research out on this. These roots go really, really far into the ground, 3 feet at least. And I wonder, and they're also very woody. So I wonder about if it could interact with a drain field or, for your septic system. No research on this whatsoever. It's just a thought that I've had. So I kind of warn folks, if you're on city water, sewer, something like that, fine. You want to keep it out of the neighbor's yard, or unless the neighbor's okay with it, you could use some type of barrier, or you have to stay on top of stick edging this. So there is some maintenance. Maybe your mowing decreases, but maybe you have to increase the amount of stick edging you do, or you have to insert some barriers in your yard. So I think it's fabulous for a median or for a place in between a sidewalk and a driveway where it would be really hard for this plant to escape. So this is a native plant. But it's an aggressive native. Now here you can see this is the picture on the right is where we had this really droughty area in between my yard and my neighbor's yard, and the mimosa is kind of creeping over there. But I wanted to show you that picture because, again, we were really droughty at this time of year. This was a few years ago, and you can see how that mimosa is green and it's spreading. And then the picture on the left is a picture of the mimosa mixed in with the bahia grass. So it's green, I mow it, I'm good with it. And again, my backyard's that beautiful St. Augustine grass. Perennial peanut, I don't know that this one actually attracts wildlife or butterflies. I'd be interested to know if any of you see it attracting butterflies or wildlife, but this is one that can take sun to part shade. It will suffer freeze damage if we get a freeze that's cold enough, but again, it's like the mimosa, it bounces back. It can fix nitrogen like the mimosa. So it can take atmospheric nitrogen and it can fix nitrogen. And so whenever you mow this plant or you mow the mimosa, you're putting a little bit more nitrogen back into the ground. So it can kind of act like a fertilizer, if you will, a very slow release, low fertilizer. So it can take any soil type except highly alkaline conditions, which can be typical of some of our urban soils. So you do want to control the weeds before you plant this. I actually use this picture. This is at the Mid-Florida Research and Education Center in Apopka, and this is right when you walk up to the front door. And I think this is really funny. And they decided to raise the mowing height or either not mow the perennial peanut right around the sign, but they mow the perennial peanut low throughout the rest of the property. So, but I like to use this picture because that shows you can really vary the mowing heights. When they mow it really low, like you see there, there's other things that have crept in. So there might be some weeds, there might be some bahia grass. When they've maintained it higher, though, you can see this nice coverage. Now, Gary Knox, and then, oh, there's another professor in the Panhandle, and her name has escaped me for the moment. But they have done research on this plant, and the best mowing that they came up with, now this is in the North Florida area, was every 4 weeks. For the best flowering is when you would want to mow this. And of course, you would not have to mow often in the winter, like our typical turf grasses. And then Asiatic jasmine, this one is not a native, just like the perennial peanut, it's not a native. I don't know that it really attracts wildlife, but it can be a really good water savings from the way our typical turf grass is managed. Again, bahia grass, super drought tolerant. We usually don't need irrigation for it, but some of our other turf grasses we do. All right, so the Asiatic jasmine, this plant, you can plant it as plugs or you can plant it as gallon size. It's really super important that you use some type of pre-emergent herbicide or a pine straw mulch initially to help it get established and reduced weed competition. And I would say that for any of these ground covers, it's really important to do some type of pre-emergent herbicide or a really fine, thin mulch to help get them established. You want them to establish and knit in so that you don't get a lot of weeds emerging from the seeds that are in the soil and in the seed bank. So this one, this is also some information from Gary Knox, and he was suggesting that you really only need to mow it once in the early spring. And I remember him saying that you could mow it back hard, but you have to get the timing right. You want to do it right before you get a spring growth flush. For this plant. And then you don't have to mow it the rest of the year. You might need to take a string trimmer to it occasionally. So maybe just some occasional edging. He recommended fertilizing the first year about 4 times, and then once in the spring every other year after that. So this can be a nice lawn replacement that doesn't require regular irrigation. And then this one is a newer one, Salvia micella. This one can take soil, the sandy soil. The light is full sun to part shade, and it can form a really dense stand. I think that this one, just again from our experience, it's an aggressive native. It can really reseed heavily. It is probably not mowable. Again, not research-based, based on our experience. We tried mowing it at Discovery Gardens and we pretty much eliminated the stand. We pretty much killed it. But so this one, know that it's going to be a looser looking ground cover, if you will. It's not going to be real short and compact necessarily, although you can tell it can provide some nice thick coverage. It attracts a hair streak butterfly. It's definitely not going to be walkable. So keep those things in mind. The other thing about it is we were growing it in full sun, and it kind of had a little bit of a overall yellowish look. And I don't know if that's just natural for this plant, or maybe it will green up a bit more if it is in a shadier situation. Maybe it prefers a little bit more shade than full sun. But again, this is kind of a newer one that we don't really have a lot of information about. So actually the information I pulled was from the Florida Native Plant Society is where I found it. All right, and then this is another one that I think has potential, but some folks on here might go, wow, I can't believe she's recommending this plant here, but this is dichondra or ponyfoot. And you can see why it's called ponyfoot. If you look at the bottom right picture there, it kind of has like a horseshoe shape to it. but it only gets like 1 to 2 inches tall, so stays very low. I have heard and read that they've used it in California as a ground cover. It can take light shade to full sun, and it does nicely in wet to well-drained soils. So we actually had this situation, and it happened just by accident in our Discovery Gardens as we had a patch of bahia grass. And I think we might have actually been over irrigating. And do we even need to irrigate bahia grass? Probably not. But we had the whole system for all these different turf grasses on the same type of system. But anyway, what we noticed is that this dichondra moved in, but we thought it looked really, really nice. So to our gardens technician, I said, hey, why don't we just leave this and we'll call it a dichondra bahia grass blend? And then we're done. We don't have to worry about ripping this out and replanting it. And, we're kind of using the conditions that we currently have there. So there's a lot of research. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. There's not a lot of research going on with these multi-species lawns, but there's more and more interest. And we may see research in this area starting to increase. So that leads me to another point, and that is, if we have weeds in our lawn, let's identify them, see what they are, see if they're beneficial to pollinators or other wildlife. Can we live with them? And if so, let's just mow them. So we actually have a publication that came out from the lab that I'm a member of with Dr. Basil Iannone. And it's basically about, recognizing what weeds you have, which ones are beneficial, and which ones you can live and let live. But we do understand that some weeds can be very noxious and they can absolutely take over. So we're not saying that all weeds have a place in the lawn, but let's kind of recognize the ones that that do have a place, and that we could just, it's green, we mow it, and we, kick our feet back and lean back and not worry about it so much, having these highly maintained monocultures of lawn. So that's just one thought process that's out there. And, I was doing a class on wildflowers, and I had this fellow that attended a lot of my classes, and he was very much, I would call him very traditional person. And, I was touring him around the plots and explaining the research, and it was funny. He said, so I've been really struggling with my lawn for years, and the University of Florida is telling me that it's okay to have wildflowers in my lawn. And, I didn't really know, we can't really give permission, right? But I just said, well, it's an option. It's an option that's out there. And he goes, oh my goodness, I've been so worried for so long about my lawn and having this nicely maintained manicured lawn. And I feel like I can just relax a little bit. You guys have given me permission to relax. So I thought that was funny that this gentleman, that's kind of where his brain went and his thought process behind it. And I was glad he shared it with me. So, if it's not something that's going to be detrimental, if it's green, can we mow it and live with it? So this is my contact information here, and I am happy to take any questions that you all might have.
Okay, let's see. We've got a few of them. Okay, this is a long one. This person has not been able to find out a lot about deer pressure. She said, we would like to replace our terrible front lawn with zoysia sod, sod with a ground cover, but we have a lot of deer in the neighborhood. Can you suggest a ground cover that has these characteristics? All right, here's the quiz. Deer resistant, evergreen, low growing, tolerates a little foot traffic, and grows well in 9B. 5 miles from the ocean. Oh, and I'm sorry, fills in fairly quickly.
Oof. Yeah. So we're asking a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, there could be information about these things being deer resistant, but most of the information I've seen on these plant materials is usually using them for restoration in a natural area that I think the research just isn't there yet.
Yeah.
So I really can't say. I mean, you could try the mimosa, right? You could try the perennial peanut. The mimosa at least is walkable. Again, I kind of caution folks that have a drain field. I don't know. I have this feeling with those really long roots, that there could be an issue with that. You know, and I think perennial peanut could be another way to go, and then the twin flower, but will the deer eat them?
Yeah.
Who knows? It's interesting that she's asking that question too, because there is a research project, another research project I worked on where we planted all these native plants, and we wanted to attract wildlife. We wanted to attract insects and pollinators and birds. And then the deer came in because we did this project next to a forest. The deer came in and ate almost everything. And we were so upset. And we said, we're saying all the wildlife is okay except deer. So as
Right.
ecologists, we kind of laughed about it, you know. I mean, you know, but I know that it can be a struggle. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, we just don't have the information.
Okay. What is EOO?
EOO.
This might have been from the beginning of your presentation. Big E, little O, big O.
Oh, I wonder if that was if I had something about E.O. Wilson in there. Was I talking? No, I didn't talk about the ecologist E.O. Wilson. I'm not sure. I'd have to go
Okay.
back to the presentation, Jennifer, and
Okay,
look.
no
And
problem.
actually, I can kind of do that maybe towards the end.
Okay.
It's not triggering right now. So.
It's all right. And when you talked about the maximum water for the population, this question is 850 million gallons per day of water maximum availability is for what amount of population?
Okay, so this is for the Central Florida Water Initiative. So this is for, I believe it is, don't quote me on this, but I believe it is Osceola, South Lake, Orlando, and I think Seminole counties. That's for that
Okay.
area.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Research plots with Bahia grass were in sun. This person is hoping that you will be offering alternatives for shady areas or maybe studying them.
Yes, you know, that's a good point. Almost everything I talked about today is a full sun plant. There is a ground cover that I would like to see us research called partridge berry, and it's a low growing native. It gets a little red berry on it that could be beneficial to wildlife. So that's one. The Asiatic jasmine, which again, I don't know that it has really wildlife properties to it, but it's a nice water savings type ground cover. That one can take the shade as well. The dichondra, the ponyfoot, that could take some shade. Nobody's growing dichondra, by the way. This is considered a weed, right? But they are doing it, I believe, out in California area. So that's another one that could take some shade. And then also that Salvia mycilla, that one I think can perform better in the shade than the sun, possibly, just because we see kind of this yellowing, kind of bleaching out effect in the sun. But that's very general. We need research there. So, you know, I'm sharing a lot of information, and for someone that works for a university, it makes me a little nervous because I'm like, we don't have research on this. We don't have research on this, you know? So, but I think, you know, that's why I kind of call this potential, you know, when we started getting into potential ground covers. Ones that we've observed that have worked well. But again, there's a lot more research that needs to take place.
Okay. This is, I think, more of a statement regarding the public perception survey of likeliness to adopt HOA rules. What is permitted could make a big difference on ability to adopt and thus likelihood. That's a variable to control for when you survey the next time. HOAs have many rules, even in violation of the FF law favoring FFL principles. So
yeah. Okay, that's a great point. And I didn't point that out, actually. I think because a lot of these people that we surveyed were extension clients. So they've known about us. A lot of them have lived in Central Florida for quite some time. I think the average was around 10 years. And then most of them did not live in an HOA that we surveyed. So we were not able to capture that. And we actually wanted to do a lot more surveys of a lot broader during the public. But if you notice, the time of year was March of 2020, November of 2020. We kind of had a global pandemic. So that, you know, we couldn't have anybody for a while out at our programs. But we did as soon as we could, you know, we started surveying folks again. But yeah, that was a big, I think, issue with, unfortunately, with our study that we could just not control.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What kind of soil were the plots grown in?
Oh, you would ask me that. I actually have it written up in in the paper that I'm working on to publish this research. I believe was a Candler sand, so it's a excessively well drained sand. And we picked the area in Discovery Gardens. We had actually picked a different area in our gardens that was a much larger field where we wanted to conduct the study. But then after we did some soil probing and such, we saw that there was quite a bit of clay in the soil and it held some moisture. So we were wondering maybe if this clay was brought in when we built our greenhouses years ago. We don't know. We didn't feel like it was representative of a soil that was excessively drained. And that's what we were trying to find, something that was very drought tolerant. So
Okay.
that's why we ended up going with this other section here and with the spot that we did.
Okay. Can you recommend a pre-emergent product for home use?
Oh, you would ask me that too. This is an area where we definitely need some more research, and I've talked to one of the weed specialists here at in Central Florida to try to to see what we could do. He did offer me suggestions. I don't have them in front of me, so this is something where you could email me and I could get that information to you because I just don't know it off the top of my head. I mean, the one pre-emerge that I can think of that so many people can find is Preen, Preen. So you'll see that brand out in the stores. So, but look for it to say pre-emergent on that bottle. So, but I think that could be key to really helping these things establish and preventing weeds.
Okay. Let's see. I'll try to be fast on this one. She planted some sunshine mimosa and would like to remove some of it to cultivate something else in the area. What is the best way to remove it without using herbicides?
Oh,
It
yeah.
has a killer root system with solarizing work. Open for suggestions, she says.
Based on personal experience, because what I did is I grew this as a lawn mixed in with my Bahia grass, as I showed you all earlier. I thought I would really like it as a green ground cover in my plant beds. And I found that I didn't. I like it as a lawn, but not, as a ground cover in my plant beds. So I actually set out to do a project and we were digging pretty deep to try to get those roots out of there. And so we actually dug them out and clipped them off very low, and we still couldn't get it all dug out. I have also gone through and I have used an herbicide on them, but it would take repeated herbicide applications because I think because the root system is so big, it can really have a lot of storage there. So I think it's incredibly hard to get rid of. You just have to, I think, try to dig it out as best you can, and it's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
So this is why, hey, one thing, that's why I'm saying it's an aggressive native. Be sure your neighbors are going to be okay with it. We'll have some type of barrier. Like I said, the drain field is a concern to me. It's just, it's kind of like a sable palmetto, the low growing sables that we have out in the woods. Take and plant that in your yard, you better be happy with it for years and years to come. And that's my lesson I've learned with mimosa too. So I have I'll recommend it, but I will have all these stipulations behind it when I recommend it. So
Okay. Let's see. Let me get to some of the relevant ones.
actually, to answer her question a little bit more too,
Yeah.
another thing that I have done, okay, so I went through and dug some of it out. I go through with a scuffle hoe every so often, and anytime I have some that are starting to come back up, I just take a scuffle hoe to it really fast. And I do that maybe every couple months to try to keep it from gaining a foothold in my beds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. What water is needed for Salvia macella?
I think it is more of a drought tolerant plant. So I don't think you're going to need frequent irrigation. Probably once you get it established, natural rainfall. But again, we've grown it in one plot. So, it may need more water than that.
Okay.
So, and I could say that with some of these plants, the Florida Native Plant Society can have some good information there. But again, not everything's research based. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think you already answered this, but do you have a recommendation for deer resistant ground cover at all?
Yeah, no, not at this
Okay.
point.
Okay.
Not at this point, yeah.
Trying again.
Right.
Can two different ground cover types be blended? For example, perennial peanut, and it says frog's tongue, but I'm wondering if it's frog fruit.
Right. Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so that kind of goes to our mixed plots, right? I think what's going to happen, well, I think you'll see like an ebb and flow. So if you plant perennial peanut with, say, mimosa or frog fruit, I think you'll see sometimes of year the conditions in the rainfall may be more favorable for frog fruit versus the perennial peanut.
Right.
So I think you're going to see some give and take. And actually, that's kind of what we're trying to do here with this mixed species lawn is we're trying to create something that will give us a nice aesthetic look throughout the year by choosing our plant species carefully. So yeah, and there's also a study that Dr. Adam Dale is doing in the entomology and nematology department where he's taking different cultivars of St. Augustine grass and he's blending them together. And I think the same thought process is there too. Like, I think he's doing it more for pest pressure. If he blends all these different cultivars together, will it be harder maybe for chinch bugs to feed on it? Or will you see as much damage? Or will one cultivar start to creep in if another one's going down because there's not as much irrigation or that type of thing. So, we're really thinking like a whole systems approach now versus a whole monoculture, which I think is cool and exciting.
Yeah. Let's see. How can they find the weed publication you just mentioned?
Oh, this is so sad. I'm on the publication and I can't remember the title off the top of my head.
Is it
But
an EDIS publication?
yes, it is an EDIS publication. And my advisor would get me for this one. So I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's something like, is there a way we could send it to them, Jennifer, or is that?
Yeah, actually, maybe Becky can look it up and give us an idea. Is it getting into the weeds?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Let me put that in the chat.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, that makes it easier. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, no problem. I'm super fast with the EDIS publications.
Wonderful.
Okay. Where is the research or article that you have with Basil?
Okay, that one has not been published. My goal is to get it done by this summer. So I didn't mention this at first, but I am a PhD student right now. We did this project as an extension project before I started my studies. This is the very first publication that I will write. So you all, I'm working on it now. Wish me luck. I hope to have it, in I shouldn't say I hope. I better have it in publishable form by the end of this summer. So I'm hoping it will get published next year in a scientific journal. Yeah. And then what we'll do, once we publish it in a scientific journal, we will write an University of Florida EDIS publication on it. So that will be, for everyone to be able to access. So
great. Let's see, a couple more. Are there any ground cover recommendations for shady areas?
Yeah, I think
of?
Yeah, the dichondra, the partridge berry, the Asiatic jasmine. I think, the twin flowers can do okay in some shade. And I think the twin flowers are very underutilized. So with the twin flowers, though, again, there's the swamp twin flower, and then there's the oblong twin flower. The oblong twin flower needs it more on the drier side. The swamp twin flower needs it on the wetter side. But I've seen both of those perform very nicely in the shade and for years too.
Okay. Do you have a handout on how to get these ground covers started? Or a DIY how to?
We do not. I wonder if we might have some type of publication out there about establishing a ground cover. I don't know of one. There's got to be some type of resource out there on establishing a ground cover. If not, I think, Jen, that would be a perfect resource that we could create.
Yeah, that would be good. I don't see any just on my cursory search just there. Let's see. Tia wants to know, what is your definition of eco-lawn?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say, good one, Tia. Okay. So to me, it'd be something that would attract wildlife, preferably, also greatly reduce the amount of water that we use. So I think it could be either or preferably both, right?
Yeah.
We want something that's going to attract our pollinators, but not just pollinators. I mean, insects, I studied entomology,
Mhm.
and I just think they're absolutely fascinating. E.O. Wilson is a famous ecologist. He actually passed away a couple years ago.
Oh, I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, I was so excited to see that he was mentioned as the first person. You know how they do the notable people of celebrities that pass
Yeah.
away every year, and the news channels run it at the
Yeah.
end of, New Year's Day, usually, or New Year's Eve. And he was the very first person mentioned with a lot of those news stations. I was like, an
Yeah.
ecologist beat out, like, actors and actresses.
Yes.
I
Very
mean,
famous one.
that's kind of a weird thing to say, these people passed away, but
Yeah.
oh, okay, anyway, I'm getting weird. But E.O. Wilson was an entomologist, ecologist, and he called insects the little things that run the world. So we have to have detritivores to break things down. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of waste. The detritivores are also important for nutrient cycling. If we don't have these insects that chew up pieces of old dead leaves and plant materials and animal materials, we don't have as much nutrient cycling. Then you have to have the pollinators to help spread the genes and help propagate the species. And again, with us, we've got to have pollinators so that we have a diversity of food,
Mhm.
and then you need the herbivores that are going to feed on the plant so that they can supply a food resource for birds. I'm actually doing this like I'm a bird coming after a caterpillar, but anyway, so we've got to have these things, and it's the massive development that's going on. We can do something to make our yards a hospitable place
Mhm.
for these insects. But that's so different. When I studied horticulture growing up, it was not, let's attract insects to our lawns and landscapes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep. It's
so
different now.
yeah, absolutely. We want to see chewing on plants because then we're supporting life, which is super exciting.
Somebody put in here EOO was in reference to bees and bee pollinators.
Hmm.
Or maybe it was EO. No, it's not EO0.
And I had it in my presentation.
Evidently. Or you
Okay,
said it.
I tell you what, let me stop the share. And
Okay.
sometimes my Tennessee twang gets me in trouble too. I sound, I still have a country accent. So let's see. I'll see if I can find it early on.
Let me ask you a question while you're looking. Are there ground covers that are salt tolerant?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Isn't isn't jasmine, Asiatic jasmine?
It might be. It
I'll have
might
to
be.
look that up. Look that
Yeah,
up in our plant app.
right. Again, there's so much. There was an old ground cover publication from UF, and I don't know if it's been resurrected, but it had a lot of ground covers. But it was what they considered ground covers were like daylilies and perennials and taller plants with some other ground covers in there. And then it had good information like that. Oh, okay. I know what you all are speaking about. It was when I talked about the rusty patched bumblebee. And I have to be honest, that was in somebody else's research, and I pulled that, and I have to look it up what it actually means too, but I might be able to do that real quick. Yeah, that was a chart that showed the pollinator decline, and it said for the rusty patched bumblebee, and it had change in rangeland EOO. Let me see if I can look it up for those of you that are interested. If you want to hang on with me for a little bit, we can answer some more questions or
Okay.
conversation.
Let's see. Let me get through a couple more. Let's see. I had a good one here. Oh, Asiatic jasmine is salt tolerant, by the way.
Oh, okay, good.
Uh, do you have any links for identifying weeds in lawns in Central Florida?
That EDA's publication that I just mentioned, I think is
Mhm.
going to be very helpful. There's also a book, if you really get into this, there's a book called, I think it's Weeds of Southern Turfgrass. And the University of Georgia actually published it. And that one, even though it's Weeds of Southern Turfgrass, there's a lot of cool wildflowers in there that could, work nicely with turfgrass.
Hey, I am a master gardener in Key West. Any suggestions for good lawn options for our island environment? We are currently trying frog fruit, but would like to choose other options for HOA common areas.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to try, I would try the mimosa, the peanut again. Those are very commonly available and they're very resilient plants. So,
Okay.
but I know that or at least so I've been told in the island areas and in the Keys, you're trying to garden in limestone and the pH can be really, really high. So I'm not sure. I think that could be an area of research too. What pH range do these plants prefer?
Okay.
So,
And this is I'm not sure if you'll know about this, but this person is in Northeast Florida is getting Bahia over a raised septic field, drain field. Can we plant anything on the hump like I think you said mimosa? They're wanting to do that, but are afraid of the roots. And I think you mentioned that, didn't you?
yeah, I think a lot of the other ground covers do not have like the aggressive root system like the mimosa. So the mimosa, I personally dug it and measured the roots because I was just so curious. And they're very woody and they go straight down. It's almost like really big, long, skinny carrots that are going down into the ground.
Okay.
So, oh, okay. EOO, extent of occurrence. That's what that means. So you guys, so we were talking about how the rusty patched bumblebee, their range throughout the US and Canada has greatly, greatly reduced. So that's the change in rangeland or extent of occurrence. So they're not seeing it in its natural area where it used to occur. It's greatly reduced.
Okay.
Great question. You made me go look at it.
Are
Lots of
there
good questions and I'm sorry I don't have more answers, but also, like I said, it's kind of, I say it's newer, but we've been talking about this for years, but the
yeah.
research is just, I think, starting to, get out there. So, and catch up with the conversations.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try to get through these. I know do you have a couple minutes still?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you had a hard out. We'll go like 4 more minutes. Are there plans to study other grass types with the blends?
Yes, I believe, oh gosh, I believe Dr. Unruh and Dr. Kenworthy, he's one of our turf grass breeders. I believe they're looking at different, starting to look more at different blends and different ground covers too. I know Kenworthy's
Okay.
doing some research with frog fruit.
Yeah. Yes.
I can't say specifically that he's doing it with grasses and blends, although I think Brian Unruh was just presenting some research about zoysia grass. Wasn't he, Jen, at our Urban Landscape Summit? It was zoysia grass
Yes.
was it frog fruit actually?
He was doing frog fruit, I believe, as well.
I think even mixed into zoysia, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember that, but well, we'll have to look that up
Yeah.
and see what we
So
can.
yeah, it sounds like I think from our angle, you all are helping us locate some gaps that we have and
Yeah,
information getting out to you. But again, it's a new area.
it is a new area. Yeah. Let's see. Someone was wondering about planting ground covers in the presence of torpedo grass.
Hmm.
Any recommendations?
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, torpedo grass is a bear. If you can try to get rid of it before you plant, it's really going to help you out. But with torpedo grass, you're going to have to go into with some of the non-selective herbicides and stay on top of it, multiple applications to kill that.
Yeah.
Or you can take the other approach and you could blend it with one of these and just live and let live.
Yeah.
But I have Bermuda grass and where I showed you all the Bahia grass and the mimosa planted together. I also have Bermuda grass that runs through there and it drives me nuts. So, and I just mow it, it's green. So
Yeah.
that's my
That's what I do.
way of dealing with it. Now, if I get Bermuda grass in my beds, I will use an herbicide because then I can, selectively.
Ginger, if you live 2 blocks from the ocean with a strong breeze, I believe Asiatic jasmine will do well both in sun and shade. At least in my experience, that is what has happened. Let's see.
And
Yeah.
said on here, extremely dry soil seems to inhibit torpedo grass. That may be true. I do see it associated with more aquatic areas. So that's interesting.
They said the weeds of southern turf grass is out of print.
Okay. There's also another weed book that or it's a weed flip chart that the University of Florida puts out, and you can get it through
Oh,
the IFAS bookstore. So there's another one. I just liked the Weeds of Southern Turf Grass because it was just more. There were, you
yeah.
know, it covered more. So, but we do have a nice flip chart that you could use. So look it
Okay.
up with the
Maybe Becky, can you look that up? Could you look that up on the bookstore and give us a link really quick?
It's like a weeds and turf grass. But again, that publication that we put out, the Getting into the Weeds.
Okay, yeah, the one that I gave the link to earlier.
Mhm.
I'm trying to see if there are any more.
Lots of great questions, everyone.
Yeah, they're great. And a lot of people are saying thank you so much. But I did see a couple,
Oh, Carissa Hogan says on here, Dr. Kenworthy and her daughter are researching frog fruit and
oh,
grass.
that's fantastic.
Very cool.
Let's see. I think that's all we're gonna have time for today. If you have other questions, I believe Brooke had her email up on the screen. And please email her or email myself, and we will both get back to you, or we'll find the information for you. I know there were some other questions I didn't get to because they were longer. So
Yeah,
we did the best we could in the time we had. So
yeah, I'd like to
just
thank
let us
everyone
know.
for the engagement.
Yeah, and thank you, Brooke, for coming on and talking about it. I've had a chance to see the plots, and they're doing really well. And yeah, it's a great study. So can't wait to
Thank
see
you.
how it turns out in print.
Yeah, thank you. Me
Yeah.
too.
All right. Well, thank you, Brooke. Have a great day. Have a great day, everybody.